thinking about proximity to failure is a really good way to start to like categorize your training and understand how to push appropriately and maybe understand how you should pull back at times and just really think about what's effective and what's ultimately not effective. I work with some older clients. I also work with some younger clients who like they don't necessarily always do a great job of like pushing accessory work, right? They're maybe hanging around that 5 reps in reserve type of area. And I'm trying to get them to maybe push into like, yeah, it's okay to push your accessory work, or it's okay to push the weight up a little bit. You're developing competence and capacity, right? But like you see this in like group fitness classes and in a lot of areas where people are either doing like just overarching way too much volume for themselves, and like they're pushing themselves close to just kind of like macro level failure, but they're not actually doing anything that's really stimulating them in positive ways that create adaptations, right? Or people are like just maxing out all the time. They're pushing themselves close to failure, and they're also doing it with more volume than they need, and they're not making progress that way. So we're trying to kind of correlate and find this like, or correlate or triangulate this like sweet spot, right? For me, a lot of my training is oriented around relatively short sessions, 2 to 3 hard working sets, close to 1 or 2 reps in reserve, or like, pretty close to failure. Like when you do a set of 8 reps, like the first 3 to 4 reps aren't really that stimulating, and that's okay. And if you're doing a set of 8 reps where you could do another 5 reps in that set of 8, that might not be actually that like work that actually changes you very much. But if you're doing a set of 8 reps where you got 1 or 2 reps in the tank, like we know that that's generally, those are effective reps, quote unquote, right? So thinking about proximity to failure for both training and rehab can be really important. And also just learning to pull back and push forward is really useful as well. So like on a macro level, in a given week, if you are, pushing yourself hard and you're starting to get moans and groans, you can kind of look at that like, hey, I'm probably getting like close to performance oriented failure, meaning like I'm not going to be able to perform as well. And there's waves to be rode in that type of experience, right? But if you're pushing really hard from week to week and you're starting to accumulate moans and groans and your performance is deteriorating and things are not feeling good, then you need to learn to pull back. And so you're gonna pull back from quote unquote macro level failure, right? On like a micro level, it might still work to push, individual lifts or movements or even like a run close to failure every once in a while. But then you have to understand that like all of your training can't be that stressful. You have to learn to manage these variables well. In rehab, like a lot of rehab, especially when it's like kind of, for your shoulder or for your knee, like for some body region, we want to start to we want to skew things on the side of calming things down, which often means, working on less weight, a little bit more repetitions, providing some stimulus that is not irritating to the region, right? And that often means we just train further away from failure, right? So you're not going to get like a stimulus that maybe drives like what we would consider positive adaptation in the form of like muscular strength or hypertrophy per se, but we are like managing the quote unquote like negative of pain by just continuing to move and do all the positive things associated with just training in the presence of pain. You can also work parts of your body and parts of your training that aren't really limited by your injury hard to maintain general physical preparedness, right? So not an exhaustive talk on like proximity to failure, but it's a really good frame to start to understand like, am I actually going to make progress doing this? Am I overworking? Am I underworking? Inside of a workout, like, hey, yeah, I pushed that set pretty hard. Do I need a lot more volume today? Maybe not, right? Or, actually I was kind of sandbagging all that stuff and I need to do one more hard set. So thinking about all this stuff can ultimately help us make better decisions, and better decisions lead to better outcomes. So that's all I got for today. Appreciate you. Peace.